Okay, well, I think that should hopefully be as many people joining us just now as we are expecting, and obviously, I'm sure that the recording and everything will be sent out after this webinar. So, I firstly just want to say thank you so much for everyone making time today. I appreciate things are extremely busy, but it's always nice to be able to get together. And hopefully, today we're going to be talking about something that is extremely important for all of us going forward, and we're going to be talking about seamless and secure applicant onboarding. So, without further ado, I would like to make some introductions and we can kind of dive into what the conversation is going to be about today. So, my name is Gillian Jones and I am a senior business development manager over at Condatis. We are an identity consultancy that specialise in all things identity, but particularly external identity, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We're really passionate about education. Plamen, myself, we've worked across the education space for quite a long time and just understand identity is a huge challenge in the industry, and offering our expertise, our advice, our learnings over the years, and also shared experiences that we have across our client bases is really important. And I think today we want to really focus, as I say, on the external identity and the admissions process, because this is the front door to your institutions. So hopefully today we're going to cover some really interesting topics. You'll be glad to know that I won't talk too much. It will be very much over to Tim and Plamen to talk about the architecture, the technology, and why we think this is so important. The chat is open. There will be questions, so we will give time at the end, and I will pass it over to my colleague Plamen to say hi and introduce himself, and then it will be over to Tim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Plamen Yotov, and I'm a lead technical architect at Condatis, specializing in Microsoft Azure AD B2C and Microsoft Entra solutions across different sectors, including the higher education. I've joined Condatis more than a year ago after almost 7 amazing years working in the identity space within the higher education sector in the UK. So I'm really excited to be part of this webinar, and I will be the tech talk guy today. So over to Tim. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Purkiss. I'm the platform owner for identity and access management here at UCL. So the work that we've been doing with Condatis falls squarely in my team. And this is the stuff that we're looking to improve around the applicant journey alongside other colleagues in other teams that are also involved in the applicant process.
Okay, perfect. So the aim of today is to keep it pretty conversational. I think we want to discuss kind of our learnings, our experiences across not just necessarily the project that we're working on, but other areas as well, and really just discuss Microsoft Entra as a platform and why we believe that this is, going to be so important going forward. But let's, I suppose, just start with kind of the overarching theme here. Like, what are the external identity issues that we see in education, and why is this such an important topic? And really, I think, as I said earlier on, admissions and the applicant process is really the front door to your university. It is how people are going to enter your digital estate. It's how people are going to engage with your brand. And as we know, students these days are extremely tech savvy. So it needs to be seamless, it needs to be secure, but that is not the easiest of challenges. We see this across multiple industry, this, idea of, one touch, your in-app payments, for example, your tap and go. And that's the sort of expectation, that instantaneous access to content or information is really what people are looking for. But to do that in a robust and secure way is tricky. So we are not for any minute minimizing that. We're also not minimizing identity as a whole across the university, but we only have 1 hour today for our webinar. So we're focusing on an external identity, but obviously we're delighted to talk about other areas of identity too. I think that universities have got a tough challenge on their hands, purely because the amount of data, the value of the data that is stored is important. So therefore, making that as secure as possible without breaking the bank with very, very expensive technologies, for example. I think these are some of the balances that we're looking to do today. And we're unashamedly a Microsoft partner. We really believe in the work that Microsoft are doing, and I'm delighted that they're spending the billions of dollars that they are on their identity platforms, on their security solutions, because it means that we can then get the best in class support that is required, and the platforms are going to be extensible and secure going forward into the future. I was really thinking about kind of the core topics and some of the overarching themes that we're talking about today. And, external identity covers every single element of the, I suppose, the spokes you can see there, for want of a better phrase. Security has to be at the forefront of our minds and our information technology strategies. It's scary. It can be scary. You read a lot about breaches, you read a lot about hacks. And I think that, what we really believe is by prioritizing identity, you actually set off on the right path. You set yourself off on the right footing, and it means that your security strategy is really, really robust from the outset. So anybody accessing information, anybody coming to your website, to your platforms, that they're doing so in a way that is robust and with security at its heart. Scalability is an area where I always think about just the complexity of the university infrastructure and the environments. You've got so many different people accessing information. You've got lots of people that are visiting from further afield. You've got all of those interdependencies between different teams within university. The IT estate is not easy. So therefore, having something like Microsoft Entra is going to provide that scalability and make sure that your ecosystem is kind of setting off on the right foundation. I touched on it there, the complex integration system, and Tim is really going to talk about this a lot later on, as is Plamen. Again, we appreciate that the day job for you guys should be about the applicant, should be about the admissions process, should be doing the things that are actually value creating, not necessarily worrying about the integrations in the back end systems. So we'll talk about why we want to improve that, because as I say, we're all about freeing up our time and making sure that we're doing the things that are really value creating, not working between multiple different systems and making that difficult. A seamless user journey. So I would say that this is one of the hottest talk tracks that I have across multiple different clients and multiple different accounts that I work on at the minute. This is the expectation. It is not the art of the possible, it is the art of the probable. It is now, and how we fulfill that is the question. We again see that identity is the part of our journey from application to student to alumni to employee to employer. Our identity stays with us for a very, very long time. And if we can work on identity being the kind of the foundation and the cornerstone, it means that actually we can attach a lot of different data points to that identity. And that for me is one of the ways that we can create those really strong anchor points and can create those seamless journeys. Self-service is obviously getting a lot of chat at the minute. AI, how do you have security around AI? Are you speaking to a good robot, a bad robot, chatbots? All of these things are things that, are ever changing. And again, from an application point of view and an applicant standpoint, I think they're quite happy to engage with AI and they're happy to engage with chatbots, but they also want to know that it is a legitimate chatbot that they're speaking to. So I think that identity and understanding the identity of not just people visiting our platforms, but also things that are in there is going to become really, really prevalent. And again, we're making sure that we're understanding that with the Microsoft platforms and how they're supporting it. Okay, cost and risk reduction. Let's merge those together because they do go hand in hand. We all know that I certainly wish I had more money in my bank account pretty much every day. And I know that we all wish we had more budgets, and budgets are also shrinking. So I think that cost and risk reduction are paramount to a good security strategy. But it doesn't mean to say that you have to go out and spend all of your budgets on that. I think that what Microsoft are doing a fantastic job with the Entra platform is building security at the core and trying to do it in as efficient financially way as possible. We want to make sure that we are providing, the cost reduction by getting out in front. Like I said before, and I will keep saying it, so you'll probably all get bored of the phrase by the end of it, but securing your front door, prevention is better rather than cure. If we can start on that good footing, it means that we don't then have to come back after hopefully something hasn't happened. You don't want to go and fix it, because that's when things do get super costly. So I think making that investment and in the infrastructure is super important. The final thing I wanted to touch on is the simplified access. So multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, smooth transitions between whatever system you're engaging with. I think these are all of the things that we are focusing on. We're providing to our customers across, as I say, a number of industries, but particularly in higher education. We're trying to keep this simple for you guys because you have a lot to do. So like I said before, the last thing we want to do is add more complexity, more workload, and actually we want to get our systems working a bit harder for us because it's all there. It's all enabled, and we just need to make sure that we are implementing that across the institutions. Hopefully, that's provided a little bit of scene setting and kind of the areas that Condatis find ourselves working in. However, I'm pretty sure not that many people have come to listen to my thoughts and my experiences in this area, and I think it's very much going to be over to Tim now to talk about UCL specifically. I think the areas we're looking at are kind of, what does external identity look like at UCL? What have the challenges been? How are we looking to solve those problems? And with that, Tim, I will hand it over to you for a little bit more insight.
Thanks, Gillian. Yeah, so I suppose there are a number of questions. What is the problem that we're trying to fix? That primarily our focus is on the applicant experience, which is the reason for this, the title of this particular webinar. So what we're looking to do is to improve, modernize how we're actually allowing applicants to interact with our systems. And of course, once you've gone beyond having a single system that applicants might be interacting with, you've gone beyond the managing local accounts for that system, and you need to be managing accounts that can be shared across other systems. So the two key systems that we're talking about initially anyway are the student system, so the applicants can actually interact with their application and actually determine whether or not they've they've been successful, what the criteria are, etc., etc. But then also the student accommodation platform, so that if they're successful, they can go and book accommodation with the university, and we want that experience to be using a common shared set of credentials that they can register themselves, manage themselves in a nice way. So we already have a platform that does that, but it's old, it's on premise, so we're creating accounts locally, and of course the problem there is that might have been fine some years ago when everything else was on premise, but now our student system is up in the cloud, our residency system is now a managed service, so integrating those other systems that are being modernized with a legacy piece of infrastructure around identity just doesn't really fly anymore. It's causing all kinds of headaches. We've got support headaches and so on. So that's what we're trying to fix. We've got high ticket volumes. We've got users complaining about the experience on a regular basis. And what we need then is something modern, something that will follow modern authentication standards, a modern external identity solution. There are plenty of them out there. And we've also got, and we're very conscious with the work that we're actually doing from an identity point of view, that the university itself is undertaking a transformation program around the admissions journey. So there's work going on in registry to improve the whole applicant process from sort of beginning to end. And we need to make sure that the identity solutions, whatever we're putting in, whether it's a tactical solution now to help with those services that are moving to the cloud, we need to make sure that whatever solution we're putting in is adaptable enough to deal with further changes that we know are coming down the line around the admissions process. Why are we sticking with Microsoft for this? Well, we're pretty much, in terms of our core systems and our core authentication experience, we're very much a Microsoft house. So we're consolidating all our authentication, our application authentication around Entra ID or Azure AD as it was until a few months ago. So in terms of supportability within the team and so on, it's important for us to have a fairly consistent skill set that we can follow, and a strategic focus on a particular set of technologies that we know that we can use across the piece. I think that's probably enough of an intro from me, is it, Gillian? Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant, and I think one of the things that it's really interesting to comment on is the standards around identity, right? So I think that this is something that we're seeing just becoming so important. We know that there's, and I'll talk to it a little bit later on, we know that there's a lot of movement within generally the identity space. So you have not just, this kind of the migration to cloud and what does that look like, and as say some of the changing names within the Microsoft stack and Entra. Yes, I agree. Sometimes I get confused. But I think it's also important to just say, right, okay, set your foundation, set the standards, make sure that the work that you're doing now is going to carry you into the next 12 months, the next 24, but actually the next kind of 5 to 10 years, because that's really what the industry is looking for. We're looking for these standards to become common practice. That's why they're there, to try and make things simple, so that when further enhancements come, when further advancements in technology are available, you know that you've got your groundwork there ready to build upon. We're going to dive a little bit more into some architecture diagrams now. So Plamen, I'm going to throw it over to you a little bit to talk through this diagram and kind of where we were prior to some of the work that's been done, and then we will also look at kind of the current state and where we are moving to with UCL, and how Condatis have supported that, by leveraging the Microsoft platforms.
Thanks, Gillian. Thanks, Tim. So Tim already touched base to pretty much on everything I'm gonna say. It's a pretty common picture, I believe, with a lot of universities where colleagues have done a great job in the past by building in-house solutions that will support the not just the applicant journeys, but other external identities and external users' journeys. So those are in-house built applications due to not existing technology at the time, or just to be different from others and to customize the user experience. So UCL was not different from other universities. There were some challenges nowadays with those solutions. As Tim mentioned, integration with the modern cloud-based applications, this consistent user journey across multiple applications, and using things like single sign-on, even multi-factor authentication. It's not impossible. Everything is possible, but it will be a lot of customizable work, a lot of effort from the team to deliver this. And I know I've been working for the higher education, and universities, they have a lot of applications. So every single department want to enable applicants to use those applications. So the identity team receives a lot of requests to onboard those applications. And if the technology doesn't support these modern protocols, it's really hard to be achieved. So legacy authentication, pretty common. It's when I say legacy, it's not that something is not in use, but it's just not those modern capabilities that we would expect from an identity and access management platform to have. Tim mentioned that accounts are created in the on-prem user directory, that no presence in the cloud for the applicant accounts. An integration with social identity providers or other IT institution, again, a lot of effort in order to achieve this. So it's not just plug and play as any modern technology will allow. The system had pretty much very good integration with other systems, like the student information system, also a custom build, which will require a lot of effort and support to look after it. On the left-hand side, that's what UCL's view was, like a presence of the applicant accounts in the cloud, a cloud-based solution with integration with the Entra ID. As Tim mentioned, this is UCL is a Microsoft house and wanted an integration with the Entra ID, and that's why the B2C solution was chosen, an integration with various systems that will allow the student verification, as identity record creation, email validation, and also, of course, a federation with the social identity providers and other institutions, not only them, and also onboarding modern applications that student, members of staff, and other internal users will have access to them through that established federation between the Microsoft products. So that's pretty much the requirement and the state before Condatis.
Okay. So then let's dive into where we are now, where we are going, and we can talk a little bit more about kind of this, obviously this diagram. And then I suppose, Tim, it would also be really good to hear kind of your commentary about, you know, what does good look like? Oh, sorry, what does good look like, and what comes next, and you know, what are you most excited about? I feel like even showing that previous diagram, you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to see that again. What comes next? We're moving forward, so it would be good to hear that as well after Plamen's taken us through this one.
Yeah, so the way that we designed the solution is not just for applicants, it's also to support external identities in the future, but the focus of the work that has been done was in the focus of the applicants initially. So it's a solution based on Azure AD B2C. I don't know if anyone is not familiar with B2C. This is the Microsoft customer external identity and access management solution. And when we talk in the context of the higher education, applicants are the main customers for the university. So that a solution capable of supporting millions, why not billions of authentication per day. It's a very scalable and safe authentication platform. It provides all the stuff that you were talking initially, Gillian, like monitoring, security, like automatically handling threats, like denial of service, password spray, and brute force attack features. So this platform will give UCL the possibility of building a custom and complex user journeys that will deliver that seamless user experience, again, not only for the applicants, but for the other external identities in the future. Maybe it's worth mentioning here that Azure AD B2C is a separate service from Azure Active Directory, which was shown on the previous slide. It is built on the same technology, but for a different purpose. It's just to support the customer-facing application, and then allow anyone to sign up into those applications, register, and define the steps and the user journey that you would like to provide to your applicants. So what has been done? Multiple types of accounts, a support for local accounts. So any applicant who would like to use username and password, the old style, the B2C will support local accounts, an integration with the cloud identity providers such as Microsoft, Google, and Apple, an integration with it's a federation with the UCL Entra ID, or previously Azure Active Directory, an onboarding of and support for two of the main applicant application, like the student portal and the accommodation service, multiple policies and multiple user journeys for password reset, forgot password, an invitation for students to go and register on the portal, And of course, a custom branding that is integrating with the university CDN. So any changes to the web styles will automatically be applied and updated for the B2C pages as well. An integration with the student information systems through the API integration services that allows data validation, a communication between the identity platform that we built for applicants and the student information systems in terms of a record has been created or check this data. So all those flows and interaction has been provided. And standard things like an email validation, again, through an API to validate the emails that are the users use to register if they're not using the social identity providers. And of course, the multi-factor authentication, which can be enabled for the applicants to use things like one-time passcode and MFA by email, and also an authenticator app. I think that's pretty much the technology.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously from the technology point of view, like we can see the architecture, but I guess for me the big question is, what is this going to enable from your side, Tim, and why is this going to be so impactful going forward? And I really liked one of the points you were talking about, Plamen, was obviously focusing on the applicant just now, but obviously where else could this journey be replicated, do you think, in the future?
So we've got quite a few other use cases that we have in mind for this. Quite when they will be deliverable on our roadmap is another question. There's another obvious set of applicants that we have, which is staff applicants. And if you think about staff who are applying to join after a certain point, after you've weeded out and made a firm offer to an applicant, you might want them to be logging in to do some mandatory training, maybe access other services that give them information about UCL. For academics who might be joining, maybe you want to give them early access to library resources and things like that, just so they can kick off their time at UCL with a nice welcome and access to various things even before they start. So even if it were just the case of giving them access to an applicant system so that they could come in and do all their right to work checks and things like that, there are benefits around using the same kind of technology to allow staff applicants in. But even for aspects of sort of widening participation, if you're running events and you want people to sign up and register for events, but you want to, maybe your marketing team then want to keep track of people. We're doing work at UCL around new customer relationship management platforms, and so there's an obvious potential for a sort of customer identity facility to support some of those kind of activities. So we've definitely got other things on the list, even though student admissions is the key driver at the moment.
So I just want to just add some more opportunities for external identities. So as Tim mentioned very well, it's the user journey starts as a prospect, whether it's a prospect student or a prospect a member of staff. A B2C platform can be used to self-register, a self-registration, and as part of this self-registration, users can do identity verification, and this is just a step, an orchestration step that can be added into the user journey to allow users to verify their identity. Of course, it will require identity verification service external, but the orchestration can happen in the B2C. So a lot of the stuff that currently is done manually can be automated and can be enabled as a self-service in the platform for any of the external identity types.
And I suppose, like, this this is a big change, right, for UCL. This is not insignificant. This is something that, you know, it is hopefully going to be hugely impactful. But what are the specific kind of gains that you are hoping to see by making these sorts of changes and implementing this infrastructure?
Yeah, so I mean, that's interesting because from a process point of view, we've got an existing solution that does stuff. So the benefits for us are mainly going to be around having that modern experience and the ease of support. So that's not just this kind of technical team support, not just the identity team and what we have to support. And there's benefits there in using the Microsoft platform because of the familiarity with and the crossover between the sort of main Enter ID directory that where all our internal users are and the very similar technology that the B2C solution is built on. But then there's also the fact that we've got that large volume of support tickets related to applicants because the experience is quite poor at the moment. So anything we can do to make that better, to make it easier for them to register. The social logins, for example, is a key part of that. If students can come along with their Apple ID or their Google ID and register using those built-in credentials, then we're not managing passwords. And managing passwords is the biggest headache. So if we're not managing passwords and we're saying, oh, yeah, it's just your Google password that you use and we know who you are, and then that makes things much easier. And I'm sure our service desk will be very happy if we got rid of that burden. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that we could all relate to it, right? We've all been there with passwords and thinking about, as a user, as somebody, you know, obviously that is trying to log into things rather than being kind of on the flip side. It's so frustrating when it doesn't work. But then I can only imagine how frustrating it must be seeing that number of requests about something that in theory is so simple and should be managed, you know. So I do think that these are the potentially what look like small things that can make they can make big changes, right? And especially for people's day to day, so that they're not dealing with the same inquiry over and over again. I remember I used to work for a technology company that specialized in kind of admission software and chatbots, and they said essentially so many of people's days were just dealing with the same question over and over again. And you know, you want to give people that great experience, you want to be really responsive, but if you've been asked the same thing 100 times in the past hour, like, I'm going to go with, you're going to be a wee bit irritated by that question. So again, it would be interesting to see kind of how those ripples come out as to if you're not having to deal with password requests and things like that going forward. Like, it surely is going to improve people's enjoyment of their days. Okay, so one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit as well is just bring it back a wee bit to the Microsoft platform and obviously what we were talking about the future of identity and kind of setting our foundations. So like I said previously, I'm in a very fortunate position that I get to spend a lot of time speaking to a lot of different clients, but I also know that there's a lot of noise around identity just now. So particularly within the education space, you know, you've got all this chat about kind of micro credentialing. Is that the same as username and password credentials? Like, there's a lot of terminology that I think gets applied in different ways or means things to different people. We're talking about decentralized identity being kind of the next wave, whereby people will be in charge of their own identity. Your phone with some sort of wallet on there will be kind of the key to access pretty much everything. So I think it's a really potentially overwhelming space at the minute. Again, things like your continuous learner record, a lot of buzzwords going around at the minute. And I think one of the things that we kind of, you know, I open this up obviously to yourself, Tim, and Plamen to comment on as well, is, you know, I think that sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed and it's easy to think, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. But actually, how do you go about doing these things? And you know, I think one of the biggest lessons learned that we have across the industry is, you know, take your time, figure out where the important pieces to fix first are, set your foundation, let Microsoft do a lot of the work for you. So they will be working on decentralized identity platforms. This will be an extension of the, you know, it's already in the Entra platform, but you don't have to do it all now. This is a journey that we're all going on. And I think it's about saying, okay, where are we in that journey? Are we moving kind of from legacy systems to cloud? Okay, cool. That's a great starting point. And then what comes next? And then what do we want to do kind of going forward? So I mean, I suppose from your perspective, Tim, as being slightly on a slightly different end of this, in terms of, you know, probably having to be part of that journey and part of delivering these solutions, you know, some of these topics like your continuous learner record, decentralized identity, identity proofing, all that stuff, like where does that sit for you just now? And is it something you're excited about, or are you a bit kind of like, slow your roll, I just want to get my basics right first?
I think there's a lot to be done before we can get too excited about some of the new bits. To be honest, I think speaking to other universities, they'll be in pretty much the same situation. They know there's a lot of identity stuff to do. But if you were to come to the identity team and say, right, now's the time to start thinking about decentralized identity or self-sovereign identity, you'd probably be getting the answer that, well, yeah, but what about all the access control, and what about all the, you know, mastering identities and deduplication and reducing the ticket volumes because of the password management system. So I think it's important to have this stuff, to be aware of it and to have it on the roadmap, and then to sort of pick your battles and determine which bit you want to do and which bit you can do within the resources that you have.
I think that's, yeah, and I think that's exactly, I suppose, kind of how we feel. So we, as I say, on the slightly different side of things, you know, I get to speak to a lot of people that are doing a lot of really cool stuff, but how does that actually kind of impact a day to day? And, you know, my observation is that decentralized identity particularly can solve infinite amounts of problems, which is fantastic and it's brilliant, but you got to make sure that you understand exactly, okay, what are the impacts going to be if I am going to make these changes, and, you know, what does that look like kind of, you know, going forward? How usable is it going to be from not only kind of, you know, a student experience type side of things, but also, as you say, from the people that are going to have to support it. Okay, what's the appetite for that? I mean, Plamen, obviously you're architecting and kind of getting really under the hood of a lot of these systems. And, you know, what's your observation about this? And you know, what do you think the potential is for higher education going forward?
Well, we started the conversation with external identity, and it's very often a discussion external versus internal identity. And as we can see, the higher education is a very good example where external identity and internal identity goes hand to hand together. And basically, a user journey starts from external identity management to the internal identity management when they become student or member of staff or associate staff. It doesn't matter. I think the missing piece is the decentralized identity, and we are not talking about centralized versus decentralized identity. We're not comparing both. We are saying this is a capability that can add a better user experience, a better security, a better integration with the future systems that are coming in the way that we manage access. I agree with Tim. That's not an easy step, an easy thing to onboard or to start start doing it. It's more about planning and how decentralized identity can help to solve some of the problems. So in my view, we're talking about external, internal, and decentralized identity as a identity management. And I think Microsoft realized that a couple of years ago, and that's why now we see all those capability in a single platform, in a single Entra platform that has those capabilities in one place. So I think maybe not only the higher education, a lot of other sectors are now starting to think about using this decentralized identity, but it's not a centralized versus decentralized. I think that's we're not there, and I don't know when this will happen. But at the moment, we are talking about both identity management types in a single platform.
I couldn't agree more. I'm involved in some, you know, very big decentralized identity projects on a global scale, but actually, you know, even then they're not fully decentralized platforms, right? There's still that core component of identity of, you know, looking at things such as B2C and the Entra platform to say, okay, well, actually it would make sense to do this bit over here, and then, you know, if we use the internal identity solutions here, and as I said, you know, it sounds a bit cliche, but it really is a journey, and it really is about having the tools in your toolkit to say, right, okay, well, this actually solves that problem over here, that works, and then knitting it all together to kind of create those robust solutions. And again, you know, I think Tim, you touched on some really interesting points about like supporting this going forward and being able to actually be like, right, okay, we've done these new systems, we've modernized, we've made changes, but you also need to then be able to turn around and say, okay, cool, well, what does that mean, and how do I do that on a day-to-day basis? How do I manage that, and does it make the improvements that we want? And I think that it is super important to look at it not only from the usability side of things and what it can offer to student experience or employee experience, whatever it might be, but then actually how does that flow downstream to the people that are supporting and actually working with it day to day. So I think it's a really valid valid way to look at things, because I think it's very easy to get swept up and very excited. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I can't imagine anything better than having something like my transcripts, my learner record, all the different things that I've done over my career on my phone. Like, it's brilliant, rather than having to rummage around in a variety of boxes that I have over my house to try and find things that I've accumulated over the years. So I love the idea of it, but at the same time, you know, if we're not there yet, we're not there yet. And I think it's exciting to see what comes next, but we've got to get our plumbing right first. We've got to put in the foundations, and I do believe that Microsoft are doing a great job in that and really facilitating this future technology going forward, which is cool.
I think just to come in there, if I can, it'll be interesting to see where we start seeing external pressure on some of the stuff around decentralized identity. We you know, the EU digital wallet scheme is pretty much going live next year, I think.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be in a situation where we'll almost be expected to be able to verify people's identity based on electronic credentials rather than on expecting them to bring a physical passport in. And so, you know, we might be then caught in that usual pincer that we are between wanting to improve the experience internally and having external compliance pressure in order to meet those kind of expectations.
Definitely. No, definitely. And I mean, I think the good thing about that is, you know, that's one of the reasons that I hope you're of the same opinion, but I think that's why, you know, the partnership between UCL and Condatis is, you know, going from strength to strength, is because we understand exactly where we are now, but also what's going to come down the line. And I don't think we'll be backward at coming forward at saying, okay, we probably need to start preparing for these things. This is what we're seeing in the market. This is what we're seeing in other client bases, and making sure that, you know, kind of we're that trusted advisor, as well as, you know, doing a lot of the day-to-day work in partnership with you guys. So yeah, no, the opportunities are endless, but as I say, we've just got to put one foot in front of the other and make sure we're doing the things that make the biggest difference today, tomorrow, and then obviously going forward. So I'm kind of conscious of time. I know that we've been talking quite a lot. I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen any questions come up, but at this point, I would love to open it up to the floor. If anybody wants to type in any questions, or even feel free to come off mute and ask us anything, as long as it's not too difficult. Does anyone have any questions, any observations, anything that resonates with their current infrastructure and their setup?
See a couple coming in the chat there, Gillian.
Let me have a look. Okay, is there any use of Azure AD B2B in the mix? Possibly a whole other topic, but I'm thinking of external identity use cases like research, collaboration projects, and partnerships. And what platform would you choose in those cases? Okay, Plamen, from a kind of architecture technology point of view, kind of what do you think? And then obviously, Tim, maybe you can answer the kind of specific research, collaboration projects, that type of thing that you might see.
Yeah, it's a very so the first one about the research collaboration is a very interesting question. So we are talking about a mix of it really depends on the use case, but we are talking about in the mix of a B2B and B2C, because a research collaborator can be a B2B an example where you want to give access to someone to your internal applications. A research collaborator can be also an external, a customer that will need access to your customer-facing applications. The way the B2C can be used for is for the self-registration. So when you want to allow another organization to participate in your projects as a research collaborator, a B2C can be used for this self-service registration, where you probably can go register and prove your identity. And then as soon as you complete a certain steps as part of this registration, you can be given a B2B account, or you can be invited to participate in that project. If you need access to internal apps, definitely this is a B2B. You can't have access to internal apps through the B2C, but B2C can be the portal or the platform where you register and you create the B2B account. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, and if I can just say from the UCL point of view, we have thousands of B2B guest accounts in our main tenant for all those kind of use cases around, researcher collaboration, even within sort of professional services. If you're just sharing a SharePoint site with somebody, that's going to be creating a B2B user. So we definitely have a blend, and we definitely need to make sure that our identity lifecycle processes are able to cope with dealing with and managing those guest identities alongside our internal identities and our B2C type external identities. So we definitely need to make sure that's all joined up. And I think that comes into, there's another question here from Rob. Was it the Rob question I was thinking of, or? No, I think it was actually Sean's question. Yeah, Sean's question about converting. So yes, so what we would be doing and what we do at the moment is to, at a certain point, it's actually when the applicant becomes a student in the student record system. We will see that through our normal identity process. So our internal identity process, we would see the transition of the state and use that as the point to create their internal identity. So we would have an internal identity. It's almost that's the transition for us between them being kind of outside the family, wanting to come into the UCL family, and being a member of the UCL family at that point, in which case we give them a student account with a student license. They can access everything they need to as a student from that point onwards. And to I was just going to answer Rob's question, having misread who was asking which question. So Rob's question about the student record system. So we use SITS as our student record system. It can cope with social media identities once we've got our B2C stuff running. One of the reasons for bringing in the B2C technology is that the B2C directory, allows us to have applicants self-registering using their social identities. And then we can make the SITS authentication work against the B2C directory. So in effect, they're using their B2C, their social media credentials to authenticate against the B2C directory, which allows them into SITS.
I think I've got two quick. Oh, sorry, were you going to come in there, Plamen?
Second part of Sean's question: can a customer unregister as well as register if they have? Yes. So what we can do as part of the orchestration B2C is when they complete one action, they can set this account as disabled. So that will mean that they have, let's say, the transformation that Tim was talking about, when an applicant is transformed to a student and they got their credentials, the internal credentials, there can be an API call to disable that account in B2C, or when they complete this, through the B2C process, the account can be automatically disabled. Of course, the B2C platform allows to use function apps that can be scheduled to run and disable accounts based on data that is stored against the local account, against the record in B2C. It's worth mentioning that even if they're using social accounts, the B2C record will still exist in the B2C directory, but without any password, because the password is managed elsewhere. So that will allow to disable those social accounts as well, and we will not allow them to sign in anymore.
I think this is an area that we're seeing a lot of development in terms of kind of client requests and things. So like we were talking about before, and one of the questions around basically that whole life cycle of external, internal, external, that journey that the student goes on, or others. The whole JML process, the ID governance, all of that, like, again, that's all now going to be housed under the Microsoft Entra platform. So I think from the Condatis point of view, like, we're doing a lot of learning, a lot of reading, and a lot of understanding about, okay, well, actually, if we look at this in this totality, rather than, being kind of a little bit siloed, which potentially things were previously, is actually understanding, okay, well, hang on a second, if you have this complex journey where you are moving between these different systems and different management tools for it, like, how do you make that better? How do you not lose any kind of control, and how can you get that full view? How does it fit compliance and regulatory and governance, like we know that also comes in? So I think that the Microsoft platforms are doing a lot of that hard work for us, which is great to see, and it's pretty cool. And there's definitely an understanding of, this is hard, it's complicated, and they need to put their time and energy in the engineering departments as well, to make sure that these solutions are actually going to be fit for purpose and really accommodate this sort of journey. So again, I think that a lot of the work that they're doing and a lot of the consolidation they're doing around their platforms is only going to be hugely beneficial for the higher education space, because it really does talk to a lot of the challenges that previously were really difficult to solve for. Joiner mover lever is a nightmare, full stop, for a number of our clients. It's such a headache. So the more that we can do, the more we can learn, and more that we can see those kind of patterns and repeatability, I think we're only going to be in better stead to help our clients, which is is really exciting. Okay, direct question. Any security concerns using social credentials? Good question. Thank you, Richard.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, fire in. That's great.
I think it's one of those things where benefits outweigh the risks. The benefit of us not having to manage passwords, and therefore not knowing passwords and not needing to know passwords for externals, is one benefit. It's also, I mean, just to be clear about how the B2C stuff works, we have an object in the B2C directory when an applicant, if an applicant registers using their Google account, the authentication is passed off to Google, but we still have an object within our directory that we can manage. So if we need to be securing those accounts, if we're worried, or we get alert from Microsoft's threat analysis that there's a risk on a particular user, we're still in a position where we've got complete control over that user object. It's just that we're not managing the password, not managing the credentials for it. We're also being quite clear about which social accounts and social providers we will accept. We're not including Facebook, for example, but we are including Google and Apple and Microsoft personal accounts. So, that's again something that organizations would have to decide for themselves what risk they're willing to put around those social providers.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. So is that okay? Do you have anything to add to that, Plamen, or does that kind of
just
cover?
The last question from Sean? Yes, we can enforce MFA as part of the registration journey. So users will have to register an MFA method using custom policy. It can be you can allow the user to choose between authenticator app, one-time passcode, and MFA via email. So any of these can be forced, and you have to complete an MFA registration, which is a B2C MFA registration. It will nothing to do with Google or Apple MFA, and the users will have to complete this MFA before they can register. And then, of course, conditional access policies are also, conditional access control is also possible in B2C, a limited, it's not same as the Entra ID, but so you can avoid asking the users every single time they sign in, let's say from the same device, same IP address, so you don't have to ask the users to put MFA if you enable the access control. conditional access control.
Okay, excellent. So I think one final question. Tim, can you say why you don't accept Facebook?
It's the usual privacy concerns around Facebook and Meta, and the way they would be using their data. That data that they might be collecting at the point where you're handing stuff off to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think across kind of I think we do see Facebook, certainly depends on kind of the regionality, I would say, but I do think Facebook is kind of diminishing in terms of that going forward. But I'm sure there'll be something else that comes along to keep us on our toes. Okay, I'm conscious of time. We've got 2 minutes left. If there's any other questions, type them quickly, I guess. But I think I hope this has been a really helpful session for everyone. I mean, I think, as we said at the very beginning, identity is just super important, and making sure that we're doing the right things and making those incremental gains. I think it's hugely valuable, because if we get this right, then it does mean that, as I say, overall you're doing a good job in terms of security. Everyone's going to hopefully be happy, and it's going to set things right on the right path. Microsoft are doing a lot of the hard work for us, which is awesome. And obviously you can see our email addresses and things on there. So if there's any further questions or anything you'd like to pick up, either with Tim or the team at Condatis, please just drop us a line. I know that we're more than happy to help. And again, I just want to say thank you so much to UCL for facilitating this session. I think it's been really interesting and really important. And as I say, we're really happy to help out with any further questions that anybody might have. And on that note, I think we'll leave you to the rest of your afternoon to get on with your days.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.